بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. Welcome back everyone to our final lecture inshallah in this module in which we will complete the huruf, the prepositions that we've been talking about. We'll pick up where we left off. We're going to do number 21 all the way to the end, number 27, and then this will conclude the section of the huruf, the prepositions right before al-awamir, command form, which will begin inshallah in the next module. So 21 to 27. The first one is law, and then we'll do len, ma, min, men, hel, and the waw. So like the previous few lectures on the prepositions, let me see here. The law is the first one that we'll take. There's some issues there that we need to look at because it talks about negating conditions and things like that. So we'll want to take a look at that. That's probably the longest section that we have. And then the ma will be number 23 will also be interesting. There are some quite a few usages there. And men will also be interesting because it comes in many of the primary texts that we have, like the hadith of Rahmah, irhamu man fil ard, irhamkum man fil sama. Most of the ayat of the sujood, of the prostration have men, not all of them, but many, let's say, I won't say most because I didn't do an analysis, but let's say most of them have the use men, yasjudu lillahi, man fis samawati or things like that. So the use, understanding the usage of men is going to be important, and we'll find it to be actually quite consequential. And then that was men, yes. Hel and the waw. Yeah, those are going to be pretty straightforward. So the ones that I mentioned to you are probably the ones that will take up the bulk of the discussion. Again, we're going to follow the same basic format of reading the text in the Arabic and then translating it and then going back and then looking at some of the examples. I'll try to do a better job than I did in the last ones, inshallah, to make sure we get all of the examples bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. Let's just see how the time goes. But that's the game plan. And then, as I said, this will end the module. Maybe I'll conclude with some concluding remarks at the end, because while this is Usul al Fiqh 2, this is also our first time in this book. So I do want to kind of leave you with some pointers. I'll see you back for the first clip, inshallah. All right, so let me get my page open, the book open to the right page here. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. قال المصنف رحمه الله ونفعنا بعلومه في الدارين آمين. So Shaykh al-Islam Zakaria al-Ansari rahimahullah, he says, may Allah Ta'ala have mercy on him and may we benefit from his knowledge in this world and in the next. Number 21 is law. Law شرط للماضي كثيرا. Law is often a condition for the past tense. ثم قيل هي لمجرد الربط. It is also said it is for linking. والأصح أنها لانتفاء جوابها بانتفاء شرطها خارجا. In the correct opinion, it is to negate the result of the conclusion in the clause negated. وقد ترد لعكسه علما. It can also come as an opposite to inform and to acknowledge the answer when the clause negated is greater than. وقد ترد let me just read that again. وقد ترد لعكسه علما ولإثبات جوابها إن ناسب انتفاء شرطها بالأولى ك لو لم يخف لم يعصي, like for example, were he not afraid he would not sin. أو المساوي, or it can negate an equal clause. For example, لو لم تكن ربيبة ما حلت للرضاع, were you not raised in my care, you would not be permissible due to wet nursing. أو الأدوني, or it can negate a clause less than. For example, لو انتفت أخوة الرضاع ما حلت للنسب, if wet nursing did not exist, she would not be permissible due to family relations. وللتمني, and then it can also be used, law can also be used for wishful talk, للتخصيص, to specify, وللعرض, to ask gently, وللتقليل, used for lessening. For example, لو بظلف المحرق, which is raised nail of an animal. And ومصدرية, and it can be used situationally. Okay, so that's a lot. So I think of actually, other than the bet, this is probably the most that we have. So let's go back, inshallah. Okay, so it's typically used as a condition for the past tense. وَلْيَخْشَ الَّذِينَ لَوْ تَرَكُوا مِنْ خَلْفِهِمْ ذُرِّيَّةً ضِعَافًا خَافُوا عَلَيْهِمْ. The people that would be afraid, that they would leave behind, weak progeny, etc. وَلْيَخْشَ الَّذِينَ لَوْ تَرَكُوا. لَوْ, here the people will be scared if they leave behind. لَوْ تَرَكُوا. So this is in the past tense. And then he says, it is also said for linking, linking as in the way in is linking to statements. Okay, now this thing about those examples of the negation and this and that. So he says that in the correct opinion, law is used to negate the result of the conclusion in the clause negated. So there are four examples, four basic. He says, for example, لو جئتني أكرمتك لو لم تجئني ما أكرمتك. The first one is لو جئتني أكرمتك. If you come to me, I will honor you. Example number one. Number two, لو لم تجئني ما أكرمتك. If it were not that you came to me, I would have honored you. So this is the negation of the action, of the conclusion. The third one is لو جئتني ما أهنتك. If you came to me, I wouldn't harm you. And then the fourth example is لو لم تجئني أهنتك. If you did not come to me, I would have harmed you. So it can also come as an opposite to inform and to acknowledge the answer when the clause negated is greater. Were he not afraid of sin, he would have sinned. Right? So the sinning is greater. Or it can negate an equal clause. Based on a hadith of the Prophet. I was just trying to look at the hadith. On the hadith of the Prophet, this is in Bukhari, Kitab al-Nikah, in the section of Babu وَأُمَّهَاتُكُمُ الَّتِي أَرْضَعْنَكُمْ. And it's also found in Muslim. So this is where, again, we're saying to negate an equal clause. For example, if you were not raised in my care, also you would not be permissible due to wet nursing. So those both clauses are equal. One is the Rabiba raised in my care, and then the other one is through wet nursing. So those clauses are equal. Or it can negate a clause less than. If wet nursing did not exist, she would not be permissible due to family relations. So obviously the wet nursing is less than the family relations. Okay. Then he says, law can also be used for wishful thinking. فلو أن لنا كرة فنكون من المؤمنين. If we only had this, we would have been from the believers, this wishful thinking. Or he says to specify or to ask gently. And all three of these are a form of asking. So he gives one large example for that. And then used for lessening. This one took me a while to translate. وَلَوْ بِظِلْفٍ مُحْرَقِ. Example, a raised nail of an animal is that you reference the large thing with something small. وَلَوْ بِظِلْفٍ مُحْرَقٍ, even if it was with the raised nail of an animal. And then it can be used on مصدرية situational. يود أحدهم لو يعمر ألف سنة. And they would wish that if they were given 1,000 years. Okay, so that was law. It was kind of chunky. There was a lot going on there. Now number 22 is لن. لن حرف نفي ونصب واستقبال. لن can be used for the negation. It can be used in the nasb case. I believe that's the accusative case with the fatha, or for the future. والأصح أنها لا تفيد توكيد النفي ولا تأييده. The correct opinion is that it does not confirm nor negate nor support it. وأنها للدعاء, and it can be used for supplication. So, لن تراني, right? لن تراني is to negate the future. You can't see me, and you will not be able to see me in the future. But he says the correct opinion is that it does not confirm a negation nor support it, because in this example that he gives when Allah Ta'ala addresses Musa alayhi salam and the ru'ya, because it is possible based on the other traditions to see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a dream, and then there's the ru'ya, and inshallah we all get the beatific vision yawm al-qiyamah. So because of lan tarani, he's saying it's a negation of the few, yani ya Musa, you won't see me and you can't see me, but it's not, the dominant opinion is that its use does not confirm nor support the negation absolutely, because in this case there are other traditions that we have. But then we have another use like lan yakhluqu dhubaban, they will not be able to create even a fly. Lan yakhlifa Allahu wa'da, Allah Ta'ala will not violate his promise. So that's why it's the word is structured. What does he say in the Arabic? Let me pick it up in the next clip, inshallah. So we were talking about len, about negating the future, and I wanted to say, no, I lost my page, of course. Afwan. والأصح أنها لا تفيد مع ذلك توكيد النفي ولا تأييده. And he says, and the correct opinion is that it does not confirm a negation or support it. Why is he saying al-asah? Because in exchange of that, there is another opinion that could say, well, it can confirm or support it based on the other examples. But the more theologically consistent opinion is what Shaykh al-Islam wrote, so that we can include this usage of Allah Ta'ala negating the vision to Musa alayhi salam, lan tarani. And it can be used for supplications. And he cites a line of poetry by Ibn Usfur, لن تزالوا كذلكم ثم لا زلت لكم خالدا خلود الجبال. But he says Ibn Malik and other grammarians don't take this verse as a hujjah. And this is an example. The reason I usually don't go into that level of detail, but this is an important example for the following reasons, because I've said, I hope I said this in the first usul, and then this one, and I got it, something that we need to always repeat, that Usul al Fiqh, when it looks at issues of language, for example, this is what we're talking about, language, or it looks at issues of theology, or it looks at issues of hadith, or it looks at issues of these other mantiq, will oftentimes have a slightly different view than the ulama of that science. So here we are not talking about len as it is used purely in the language, fil lugha. That's the job of Ibn Malik and Ibn Hisham and others. All of the Kufins and the Basrins, all of the great grammarians, may Allah have mercy upon all of them. That's linguistically. Here we are looking about, yes, taban, it's linguistically, but how does it impact our istinbat of the ahkam? So because of this verse of poetry, it might not be proper to use len as supplication in the Arabic language from a linguistic point of view, but it can be, and therefore that is an option when we have len as an interpretive tool that we have. So that's just something, just like an example. Just because there's a difference of opinion, it doesn't mean that like something's wrong with the people or with Usul al Fiqh. Okay, number 23 is ma. ما ترد اسما ما can be used as a عفوا ما ترد اسما موصولة. It can be used as a connecting noun أو نكرة موصوفة, a description of a non-definite noun, وتامة تعجبية, or for surprise and astonishment, وتمييزة, to differentiate, مبالغة, rhetorical, استفهامية, questioning, وشرطية زمانية, conditions of time, وغير زمانية, and conditions for situations, وحرفا مصدريا لذلك, it can also come as a preposition for time and situations, ونافية, to negate, وزائدة كافة, or extra and non-conjugated, وغير كافة, or conjugated and therefore it is a replacement for something else. So that one is a lot going on in that one too. So let's go back and look at it. Ma. Okay, ma can be used as a connecting noun. اسم الموصول ما عندك ينفد وما عند الله باق, meaning that ما عندك ينفد, that which is with you perishes, وما عند الله باق, that which is with Allah Ta'ala lasts. So here ma is a connecting noun. أو نكرة موصوفة, description of a non-definite noun. مررت بما معجب لك. مررت بما معجب لك, I passed by that which you find astonishing. So here the ma is that which you find astonishing. تامة تعجبية, surprises and astonishment. ما أحسن زيدا, and this is probably more the common use. How great, or how well is Zayd. تمييزة, to differentiate. إن تبدوا الصدقات فنعم ما هي, if you conceal that which you give, فنعم ما هي, so what a blessing that is. So this is to differentiate between concealing the giving and giving it publicly. استفهامية, I missed one. مبالغة, rhetorical. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد. He gives an example in زيدا مما أن يكتب, which is a rhetorical structure to say Zayd was created and he has the ability to write or to articulate. استفهامية, questioning. فما خطبكم, what is your situation? So here the ma is used. Conditions of time and conditions for situation. So for time, فما استقاموا لكم فاستقيموا لهم. So those who stand with you, stand for them in time. And non-time, وما تفعلوا من خير يعلمه الله, that which you do from good, Allah Ta'ala knows it. And then it can come up as a preposition for time and situations. فاتقوا الله ما استطعتم, have taqwa of Allah as much as you are able to. فذوقوا بما نسيتم, so taste that which you had in the past forgotten. May Allah Ta'ala protect us. ونافية, to negate. ما هذا بشرا إن هذا إلا ملك كريم. ما هذا بشرا, when the women saw Yusuf alayhi salam, they said, this can't be a human being, but he's an angel, because he was so handsome and beautiful alayhi salam, not to be surpassed by the beauty of Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. وزائدة كافة, extra and non-conjugated. ما بسم الله الرحمن إنما الله إله واحد. So here it's a kafa, it's not conjugated in this structure, and it can be conjugated, but if it is conjugated, then that means it is a substitute for something else. فبما رحمة من الله لنت لهم. The original statement of that verse would be فبرحمة فبرحمة من الله لنت لهم فبما رحمة من الله لنت لهم. So this is a form of tawqid, a form of confirming, and therefore it is a substitute or extra, and therefore in this context it is conjugated. So those are some of the usage of ma. Number 23. Number 24, min. ومن للابتداء لابتداء الغاية غالبا. Min is typically used to start a goal. ولانتهائها, to end it. وللتبعيد, for partial usage of a thing. وللتبيين, to clarify. وللتعليل, to explain causes. وللبدل, to exchange things. وللتنصيص العمومي, to indicate generality. ولتوكيده, and to confirm generality. وللفصل, to differentiate. وبمعنى الباء وعن وفي وعند وعلى, and it can be used in the meaning of the ba, عن, في, عند, and على. Okay, so min, اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد, is used for a goal. سبحان الذي أسرى بعبده من مسجد الحرام إلى المسجد. Min, from the holy mosque in Mecca إلى المسجد الأقصى, to the furthest mosque. May Allah Ta'ala free it and protect it, inshaAllah, in Jerusalem. Or it can end a goal. قربت منه, I got close to him, meaning that the goal of being close to him has ended. You are now next to him. وللتبعيد, partial usage of a thing. حتى تنفقوا مما تحبون. حتى تنفقوا مما, يعني من ما, but the way it's written in the Uthmanic script, مما تحبون, that you spend from that which you love. So part of what you own, not, you don't have to give everything. وللتبيين, to clarify. ما ننسخ من آية أو ننسها نأتي بخير منها. ما ننسخ من آية. So we don't abrogate a verse. We'll talk about abrogation when we get to the section of abrogation, except that we replace it with something else. To explain, يجعلون أصابعهم في آذانهم من الصواعق حذر الموت. So they place their fingers in their ears. We use this to talk about a partial versus literal, etc., figurative. They put their fingers into their ears, not their mouth. They put their fingers into their ears, من الصواعق, from the sound. So this is to explain why. And then to exchange things. أراديتم بالحياة الدنيا من الآخرة. Will you choose this world over the hereafter? You're exchanging one for the other. To indicate generality. ما في الدار من رجل. Nobody, there is no men in the house. So in general, this is to indicate a general thing, or to confirm the general thing. ما في الدار من أحد. Nobody is in the house. So men here can also be used to indicate generality and to confirm it. It can also be used to differentiate. والله يعلم المفسد من المصلح. I'll pick it up in the next clip. I just went over, sorry. I'll pick it up in the next clip, inshallah. The last thing we left off on min is to differentiate. وَاللَّهُ يَعْلَمُ الْمُفْسِدَ مِنَ الْمُصْلِحِ. Allah knows the sinful person from the person who does well. Min, this from that, differentiate. And then it can be used as the ba. يُنذِرُونَ مِن طَرْفٍ خَفِي. The min here could also be a ba. Or you could be used as عن is قَدْ كُنَّ فِي غَفْلَةٍ مِنْ هَذَا, or عن هذا. And it can be used as في إذا نودي للصلاة من يوم الجمعة أو في يوم الجمعة, in the day of Jum'ah. And عند لن تغني عنهم أموالهم ولا أولادهم من الله شيئا. You could say عند الله شيئا. It can be used as على ونصرناه من القوم, نصرناه على القوم. Okay, men. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد. من موصولة أو نكرة موصوفة. Man is used to connect, It's used as a non-definite description. وتامة شرطية, complete condition. واستفهامية, questioning. وللتمييز وتمييزة, to differentiate. Okay, it is used to connect. مررت بمن معجب لك. I passed by the person who likes you. Non-definite description. مررت, عفوا, I messed up. من موصولة, to connect. ولله يسجد من في السماوات والأرض. So meaning الذي في those that are in heaven and the earth. Then it can be used to as a non-definite description. مررت بمن معجب لك. I passed by the person who likes you. It can be used as a condition, a complete condition. من يعمل سوءا يجزى به. Whoever does bad will be punished for it. May Allah Ta'ala protect us. It can be used as a question. فَمَنْ رَبُّكُمَا يَا مُوسَى. So who is then your Lord, O Moses? رَبُّكُمَا يعني meaning Moses and Aaron alayhim as-salam. And it can be used to differentiate. And he gives this line of poetry. وَنِعْمَ مَنْ هُوَ فِي سِرٍ وَإِعْلَانٍ. And this is differentiate between these two people. Number 26. هل للطلب التصديق كثيرا وتصور قليلا. هل is typically used to ask the veracity of something. Is this, هل هذا موجود, is this here? So either yes, it's here, or it's no, it's not here. Or هل هذا صحيح? Is this true? It can be either true or not true. And then he says وللتصور قليلا. And he says sometimes it can be used conceptually. When you ask like a theoretical conceptual question. And then lastly, the waw. والواو العاطفة لمطلق الجمع في الأصح. Waw is used as a conjoining preposition for plural. Waw as a conjoining preposition is for plural in the dominant opinion when you are adding up things and they are plural. And this ends the section that we had for the coverage, and this ends the prepositions. So I ended up a little bit early on purpose. I thought that maybe it would be good in this last clip that we just kind of take stock of all that we've done up until now. So if we take a step back, everything that we've done up until now is first of all, this is a great book, okay? And I know it's condensed and everything, and it's a difficult book. It's not an easy book. It's not only difficult in Arabic, it's not only difficult in the translation, it kicked my butt in the translation and continues to do so. You see me with my pen. I have my red pen with me. I'm always marking because it's a work in progress. It's also very difficult in the Arabic language, which is why a lot of people don't study it. And I think that that's very tragic because this book is the key to Jam' al-Jawama, which is the largest, one of the largest compendiums that we have of Usul al Fiqh. Anyway, so this is a great book, and it's something that you're going to want to stick with. And I understand that sometimes it seems like we're rushing and sometimes examples are lacking, but inshallah you have access to the translation and you go through it once, twice, 7, 8. I mean, this is, maybe the second or third time I go through it myself to present it, and I'm still picking up things. We looked at the introductory, his introduction, which are the definitions of Usul al Fiqh, Fiqh, Sharia rulings, things like that. So that was important because that kind of like lays the ground for what we're dealing with. What are the variables that we are dealing with in the subject matter? And then following that, we moved into, and of course we talked about knowledge and how we understand things. Then we talked about obligations and how we understand obligations. Then we talked about absolute, al-mutlaq. And then we gave a little bit about awamir, about commands, even though the commands will come later in its full. That's sort of the introductory to the book. And then we did, we are in book 1, the Quran and how to understand statements. We did the Quran, which we said is really like the introduction to that chapter. And we looked at the qira'at that are sound and all of that. We looked at what the sound qira'at are, the canonical qira'at, the tawatur, versus the shadh qira'at, the ones that are not. And then we began talking about statements and meanings. And this is where we were looking at language. Statements and how do we understand the statements that we're reading in the Quran and Sunnah? Because they are statements. We want to make sure that we understand it and that we make sense of them. And then we had many issues that we talked about that, in which we talked a lot about literal and metaphorical meaning and reasoning, literal and metaphorical usage of language. plurals and singulars. We talked about the nature of language itself, it being tawqifi. And then we talked about words that match their meanings and don't match their meanings, match partially, match fully. We looked at homonyms. And then we looked at conjugation, and we spent a lot of time looking on that. And then we looked about the type of meanings that we get from the literal words and the metaphorical words. And then when we finished all of those 9 issues after the Quran, then we began this long list of prepositions. I can't remember right off the top of my head how many lectures. I think it was 4 lectures, including today's. And there are 27 prepositions that we looked at. Now, you'd think that, okay, the 27 are like kind of a drop-down list. It's pretty simple. But no, it's not simple, because each one has multiple things that are multiple ways that it can be used. So when you have something like ba or men or law or lawla or something like that, or hell, you have to ask yourself, it's not just one. It has one of these things can have like 7 to 10 meanings. What is the meaning that is used in this verse? What is the meaning that we can glean from its context of how it's used? Is this something that is it a negation? Is it an absolute? Is it one of the example? Is it one of the usages that is accepted by the usuli community but not by the grammarian or the linguistic community? So on and so forth. This is where the differences of opinion, now you can start to see in your mind, this is where differences of opinion will emerge. They will emerge because there are different ways to understand the usage of the word. Is the men here, is it meaning this or this? Is the ba here meaning this or is it that? Sometimes there will be a preponderant answer. The pretty much, this is the only thing that you can make from this usage. But many times, I won't say all the time, but many times there are differences of opinion, because it can go this way or it can go that way. And depending on how a particular mujtahid looks at the usage of these prepositions, and the evidence that they feel is the strongest in their understanding of that preposition, based on that there will be different interpretations, and then there will be different, therefore, rulings ultimately in the Sharia. When we talked about, after we finished the Quran stuff and we did statements, we kind of got into that a little bit when we looked at how some of the Hanafis look at some things versus some of the Shafi'is and whatnot. But it's only going to increase more. And that's why towards the end of the book, we'll talk about, the tarjih al-adilla, how do you gain evidence. In the waraqat that also exists, and we'll talk about ijtihad, we'll talk about taqleed. Why do we need to talk about those things at the end? Well, because it all stems from what we're talking about now, that there are embedded in the nature of the language of the Quran and Sunnah is multiple interpretations. It's very hard for you to say there's only one interpretation all the time for everything. It's not the case. There can be multiple ways at looking at things depending on how you're weighing the evidence. That's why this subject is probably, I would go as far as to say, the most important Sharia subject that you study, and why this book is a wonderful tool for that. Because yes, it's condensed and there's a lot of moving parts, but if you just go back to it over and over and over again, and it kind of becomes like a natural thing for you, you'll have a much better time at looking at differences, reconciling differences as you come across them, and things like that. So my suggestion is that you just be patient, and we'll continue the journey. Of course, we're not even, I think we're like 1/3 or 1/4 through the book. We still have a ways to go, but I kind of wanted to give you a pause here so we have a moment to kind of reflect on everything that we've done. Wallahu ta'ala a'la wa a'lam, wa sallallahu ala sayyidina wa maulana Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Alhamdulillah, we finished lecture 15, meaning that we finished also this module. I did a recap at the end of the last clip, but let me just do another recap now, as is just pro forma of how we've been doing things. So we picked up the discussion in number 21, which is law, and we did 21 to the end, which is 27. In law, we looked at the 4 types of clauses of negation that it can have, which are important because there are some serious examples that come to that. And then we looked at len, which was pretty straightforward. Ma actually had a lot, so when I prepared, I forgot to mention that ma has a lot of examples. Actually, ma and min, 23 and 24. Actually, ma, min, and men, 23, 24, and 25, they had a lot of examples. So I was mistaken in the beginning. That's sort of where the bulk of the conversation is. and then hel, and then waw were the last two, which were, I think, pretty straightforward. This concludes the module, concludes the prepositions. Of course, this is just like we're in the beginning, and we're in the middle of this book of the Quran. Are we in the middle, or? Yeah, we're about in the middle of the book of the Quran. The next book will be the Sunnah. But before we get to the Sunnah, we have a lot more things that we're going to discuss in the beginning of the next module. So I think this is an odd place to stop, but also given the density of the book, I can't imagine going further in one module. I think this is really the only place to stop before we talk about the awamir, the commands. So, as I said in the concluding remarks, I understand that this book is dense, and especially the last section, the prepositions. I think it was like 3 or 4 lectures. It can seem like an endless list of things that have multiple usage. This is where you're going to have to learn Arabic. Okay, you'll have to learn the Arabic because it's the only language to deduce the meanings from the Quran and Sunnah from. And if you know the Arabic and then you take this list and you keep going back and forth with the examples, inshallah it will stick, and inshallah you'll find great benefit in that. So I don't want people to give up. The reason we've created the format of this program, and it's pre-recorded, half of it's pre-recorded and the other half inshallah will be live at some point, is that you can go back to it over and over again and have access. So avail yourself of that. Don't give up and stay with it. Wallahu ta'ala a'la wa a'lam wa sallallahu ala sayyidina wa maulana Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam.